right, we're going to go ahead and get started, everybody. So thank you for being here. This is Just Ask Julia, where we share tips, tricks, and trends to help you transform your career and elevate your success. I'm Julia Holian. I will be leading today's session on networking, leveraging your network to get the job that you want. And now, if you are watching the session live today, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So you can ask us anything that you want so that you can stay on track with everything that you're doing in your career. But if you are watching this as a recording, feel free to click the link in the description below, and you will be able to sign up for future Just Ask Julia sessions where you can ask us questions live as well. But let's dive into networking because there's so much to cover here. I will tell you, as I was putting this together, I realized that there's just so much more that could get covered, but we're gonna tackle a lot today. And I want to start out by just talking about really what is networking and what should networking be. A lot of people look at networking or hear the word networking, and I think they kind of want to duck under their desk or hide behind a sofa. It sounds like it is going to put them in a position where they have to reach out to people that they don't know or ask things, and they get uncomfortable. They feel self-conscious. They don't really want to do it, but I want you to reframe it just a little bit. And I want to give you a couple ways to look at it. The first is I want you to think of networking as a continuous loop of reaching out, asking questions, showing curiosity, sharing ideas, and helping others. Networking is really more about keeping in touch with people and being of value to them and knowing that there are times when they can be of value to you, but it doesn't mean that it's always about the ask. And so we're going to be talking a bit about that this morning. The other thing is that it's also what I would call an intentional expansion of who you know that leads to connecting with people that you need to know. If you think about this for yourself, when people reach out to you and ask you for help, you're probably willing to help. Others are too. And when you are networking, you are trying to kind of expand your circles. It's not like a major expansion overnight, but it is sort of this slowly, gradually expanding network of people that you know. So if you think of it in these two ways, it's continuous, it doesn't ever really stop, and it's intentional. So you have a purpose in it. That might make it a little bit easier. But let's now talk a little bit about some of the facts that back up networking. So first thing first, 85% of all positions are filled through networking connections. 85%. I have seen this as having been a recruiter for over 20 years and then having this company for almost 8. Looking at where people find jobs, they often find jobs through the people that they know. Now, LinkedIn is a part of this. We're going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. That's going to be kind of like included in everything that we talk about, because I think it's one of the biggest forums or vehicles for networking. But 85% of all positions come through networking. So if you are applying online and that's really the only way that you're looking for a job, or you are just kind of hoping that something's going to come your way, it really means that you need to kind of change that up and start talking to people, because that's where you're going to find that next role. And I would say that even happens internally as well, if you're looking for an internal role. Also, only about 30% of all jobs are posted on websites. This is a new statistic. I would say it's applicable to this year, 2023, when we're leading this. I've seen this drop. I used to see this more as about 45, 55, 60, sometimes percent of the jobs were all posted. In this market, we're only seeing about 30%. I've talked to a number of former clients recently and asked them, how are their companies hiring? And I was so surprised by how many of them said that their company was hiring people that they'd never put the job on their website. They never posted it internally. They'd never put it on any kind of a job board. So there's a lot that's happening for positions out there getting filled by recruiters who are on LinkedIn or working their network, or people internally are referring people that they know, that they used to work with, that they've met somehow, to these jobs and these positions that are open. So definitely think about that you got to kind of think outside the box for reaching out to people and getting that next job. If you are also thinking of what happens in the hiring process, if you are referred into a job, 67% of employers and recruiters confirm that the hiring process is actually shorter for referred candidates. We all know that the recruiting process has lengthened. It used to be, I would say, when I started in the industry back in the 90s, we would interview with 4, 5, 6 people maybe and get an offer. I'm now seeing people interview with 8, 10, 12, sometimes even 15 people. It's really gotten long. But when you have somebody who's been kind of like your champion and advocated for you and brought you into the process, then that can get cut short because people already have a trust factor with you. So consider that if you aren't networking into those jobs, your interview process might be longer. And you can probably even test this out. So those jobs that maybe you got an interview for that were through an online posting versus the positions that you interviewed for where you were referred in, see how different the interview process is. 41% of people say they want to network more often, but they don't make time for it. I'm going to bet that almost everybody on this call is feeling that same way. We all think we can network more, but we struggle to make time for it. I see this a lot. When people are in an active job search, they will often network then because they know they have to. If they're talking to Liz or me, they know that they're going to be told that this is what we need to do and we're going to set up a game plan for you. And then they get their job and they stop networking. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to just this year who said, yeah, I was networking then, but then I got into my job and I got busy and I just kind of let it go. And now they're in a position where their role is changing and they may not want to stay where they are, or something's going to happen and they may even lose their job because their company's been acquired or they're struggling. And now they need to go network and their network's kind of gotten cold. So it's really important that you keep it going. And then 40% of people network more online than in person, yet in-person meetings actually have a 40% close rate. So we went through this pandemic where we kind of stopped meeting people in person. And even today I hear, and I have said myself, gosh, I feel like I'm so efficient being able to be in my office and talk to people on Zoom, yet the relationships are built more when you go out and meet people in person. But that doesn't mean that you have to go have lunch or dinner or even coffee. I am hearing of people taking walks. They are meeting at parks. They're sometimes even meeting socially. They're finding other people who all kind of want to get together. Maybe they know at their company, things are changing. And so they all kind of reach out with others and they get together and they might, do some kind of an event. They go to a ball game, they go play tennis or golf together. So there are other ways to do that that don't have to be that you were just one-on-one face-to-face. You could bring other people into the fold as well. But let's look at the real benefits of it. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these because you can read that. But the thing to really think about is that when you're networking, you're building these relationships that ultimately can become friendships, and they increase your ability to glean information when you need to know who to go to when you have a question. I have a kind of an interesting, fun memory. When I was recruiting, I worked with a guy who was a few years ahead of me in recruiting. He was very good at what he does. And he had both of his kids in the office one day. And his daughter, who was probably about 8, 9, 10 at the time, she had come over and she was sitting by me. And we just got to chatting. And she said, I don't think Dad really works. I think he comes in here and he just talks to his friends all day. Well, what he did and what made him so successful was because he would just call people all day long, not just to try to place people in a job or try to see who was looking for a job and try to recruit people, but just to touch base. That was his way of networking. And today he's been doing this for probably 30 years. He's very, very successful. So many of the people that he's gotten to know, whether they were clients or candidates, have become friends. That's his network. That's how he uses that network. So you create a lot of these other relationships. And what I think is so valuable when you have these long-term relationships and you learn how to nurture them is that you can go back and ask questions. If you need information, if you are looking to get introduced to other people, if you want to make some kind of a pivot in your career, you have this sort of this group of people that you can go and talk to. And people have different sort of levels of contact with you. Some might be LinkedIn connections. Some might be people that you've worked with. It really varies. But I would recommend that you think of this list because it's not just about asking them for something. It's also about the resource that you can be, for them as well. You can give back. So your checklist for networking successfully, I want you to create a plan. When you create this plan, it is not just the transactional plan of what you might do today as you are looking potentially for another job. And again, that looking for another job may mean moving in or around in your current company. It could be changing companies, but create a plan for what you're going to do and how you're going to do this. Make this, you can have a short-term plan, but make this also a long-term plan. How are you going to navigate this for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years? Sets up some kind of way of managing it and set some really clear goals for yourself. What are you trying to accomplish? Where are you today? Where do you want to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, based on what you're trying to do with your career? Are you trying to create connections? Are you trying to create a community of people that you need to know and want to stay in touch with? Are you looking for those mentors, those people who you can go to and bounce ideas off of, yet to have a sounding board, some kind of a resource? A lot of people, when they think of mentors, they think in a company they get assigned a mentor, but a lot of times mentors just happen. But you may have to intentionally think of what that is, because maybe you are looking at making a career pivot or you are looking to do something and you might need to find somebody who's kind of in that space. So you may be looking to expand your connections just to have that mentor or find that mentor. You could be looking for other kinds of guidance. You might be looking for other business collaborations. One of the, I think, my favorite things about doing what we do is that we get to know a lot of different people. So both Liz and I are in networking groups. And when we are meeting with all of these people, one of the things that happens with that is that it creates a resource for us when we need information. So if I have a question, I don't know how to answer it, I have this huge group of people I can go ask. If they don't have the answer, I know that they know somebody else who does have the answer. So I can tap into that. If I've got a client who needs something and I don't offer that, or I don't have that at my fingertips, I have people that I can introduce that client to. So whether somebody's coming to me and asking me for help, or whether I'm trying to glean information, knowing people who maybe have different roles, they're in different industries. If I have questions about insurance or something legal or another type of work, I don't always know everything about every industry, but I know so many people in different industries that I can call somebody and say, hey, give me kind of the lay of the land on how this works over here so that I can be a better resource. And I would also say, thinking of your goals, thinking of how you want to be in sight of others. How do you make sure that they see you? Now, I think that LinkedIn is one of the best places for this. We talk a lot about LinkedIn at Holy & Associates. You can go to our YouTube page if you want to see some of the past Just Ask Julia workshops where we've talked about LinkedIn, and we're certainly going to do more in the future. That is one of a great place for being kind of in sight, but it might be other things as well. You may need to show up places so that you are seen. We're now seeing that business conferences are coming back. And I know a lot of people have anxiety about business conferences because they want to go there for the information, but they don't want to have to go up and talk to people that they don't know. But it is a way of at least talking to the people at your table or mingling in some kind of a breakout session, and also giving people the opportunity to see who you are. And you're sitting in kind of a circle that's usually tied to your profession or industry, and it makes you validated in that, whatever that is. I would also identify your personal stepping stones. What things do you know you need to do? What are those clear stepping stones that you want to be on? How do you move forward? How do you look at the progress that you're going to be making? Visualize the outcomes, know what you want to get from each of the meetings. So when I say visualize outcomes, that isn't just on the grand scheme of things. That's even in each of those individual conversations. Because I think a lot of people go into these conversations and they're worried, gosh, I feel like I'm bugging them. I don't know what they're going to think of this. I don't really know what I'm going to say. And we're going to talk in a moment about some of the things that you can say. But think about it from a positive standpoint. Like, what if this led to me getting that introduction? What if this led to me getting my resume in front of the right person? What if this led to getting the interview for the job that I really want? Plan your pitches, know what you want to say. So think about the things you want people to know about you. Think about the things that you want to put out there into the universe. People cannot read your mind. Just know that they need to be given very specific information to know how that they can be a resource to you. Create lists of questions. We have a little list of questions on one of the other slides. Select where you want to connect with people and make sure people are able to find you. Dress for how you want to be seen and how you want to be known. This is sometimes where I think when we look at the pandemic, people got a lot more casual, and that's fine. But if you are moving up and you want to move into a certain type of a level in a company, you may need to dress the part a little bit more, and you probably want to start that sooner rather than later. If you don't take anything else from this slide, though, I want you to think of the next bullet, which is follow up, follow up, follow up. Number one thing that people fail to do if they are networking is that they don't follow up. Send the thank you note afterwards. Thank you so much for our coffee. Thanks for having this conversation. Find a way to follow up. I would create a tickler in some way that you can follow up. If you want to create a spreadsheet, create a spreadsheet. If you want to use Gmail's tasks and create a whole task bar just for all the people that you're networking with, and you can do this, you can segment it in multiple different task bars, do that. If you've got another system for following up, figure out what that is. But your follow-up is usually right after you've talked to somebody, right after you've met them. So if you went to a conference and you've come back with names, follow up within the first 48 hours, but also have another follow-up where maybe you reach out to them in 30 days or 60 days or 6 months or a year. What are some of the ways that you could reach out? I'll share one story with you. When I was recruiting, there were two people I remember in my last job when I was recruiting who had a really smart way of following up with me. So obviously they were consultants. They were always looking for their next gig. And I was one of the ways that I could help them because I could place them. And they would be on LinkedIn or, Wall Street Journal or any of the other publications, and they would see articles. And I would say not a month probably went by that I didn't, from both of them, separately, they didn't know each other. They would send me some kind of an email that referenced an article that they saw or a statistic or something that was interesting. And it always fascinated me that they were really thinking of what I would want to see. It was very good information. I always had them top of mind, and I placed them multiple times because they never let me forget about them. So if you're not sure how to reach out to people and you're thinking, how do I do this follow-up? I don't have anything else to say. Find other creative ways of letting them know that you're there. We talk again a lot about LinkedIn. When you are commenting on something on LinkedIn, you can tag people. And when you tag people, it shows up in their notifications. It's just another warm way of letting people know that you thought that they thought of you or you thought of them. And you're making that connection of like, oh, that person's still out there. So you want that for yourself. I would definitely track your progress, know how things are going, see if maybe you need to recalibrate something. Is maybe the pitch that you're making not getting what you need? Maybe you need to call Liz or me and let us help you flush out a different way of approaching your network. But track your progress so you know how you're doing, and stay the course. Always be consistent, be persistent, know what you're trying to accomplish, and don't give up. Now, who is in your network? Your network is probably broader than what you think it is. Because even if you're thinking, okay, my network is just the people that I've worked with in the past or currently, it's more than that. Your family is your network. Let everybody know what you're trying to do. Your friends, your neighbors, your parents of your kids' friends and teammates. So for anybody here who has kids that are playing soccer every weekend, you probably have gone to these Saturday, Sunday games. You're sitting around 12 to 25 different parents, and you probably say hi, but you don't really have a conversation with them. Maybe think of 2 or 3 questions that you could ask of anybody and feel comfortable doing that. That just kind of opens things up. Maybe in tomorrow's soccer game, you walk up to one of those people and says, hey, we've been standing here on the sidelines for, 6, 7, 8 weeks now. And I don't even know what you do. What do you do? Just open it up. You're going to find out about them. They're probably going to turn it back towards you. You have a chance to talk about yourself. I have seen it happen where people got interviews and made career changes just by talking to people on the soccer field. And of course, the longer list here, it is the people that you've worked with in the past, you went to school with. But I would also recommend that you really think intentionally about your profession and your industry. Let me separate those. Your profession could be accounting, but your industry might be healthcare. So they don't have to always be the same. Sometimes I hear people talk about industry and they combine it with profession, but the profession is the work that you do. The industry is the environment in which you do it, and what that company's industry is. You want to expand your network by your profession and your industry. So accountants know accountants who know accountants who know recruiters who know accountants, and so on and so forth. Same with your industry. You sort of trench yourself into that. If you are looking to make a pivot, then you want to make a pivot even by profession and industry, thinking of those other people that you might need to know in those other areas. You also want to think of people who you have in common. So on LinkedIn, when you are connecting with somebody, you probably see 2 things happen. You see that LinkedIn comes back and gives you usually some recommendations of other people that you might want to connect with. And you also probably start getting invitations from people that you don't know. And I would say one of the things to look at when you're looking at all of those options are, do those people have a lot of other people in common with you? And if you do, then those might be people that you want to connect with if you overlap, again, industry, profession, or in some other ways. But there's also these people in common. They're kind of like known people. So you might want to widen your circle that way. And then think of business adjacent connections, meaning other people who do things that are kind of connected to what you do, but not necessarily specifically, because they may be those movers and shakers who will help you get to where you're going. I want to give you 4 examples of things that have happened in the last 2 to 3 months with clients of ours and people that we're talking to. And I want to start with Dave. So again, real stories. Dave had been in his company for 4 years. His company was struggling, and his position and his whole team, their jobs were being eliminated. He went on LinkedIn and he put on a post on LinkedIn that said, after 4 years, my company is unfortunately making some big changes, and I'm no longer, in my role. And so I'm actively looking for another position. I am so proud of the work that we did. And then he tagged a number of people that he worked with and mentioned a couple of the things that they accomplished, and said, I hope with this post that people I've talked to in the past who know me will reach out so that I can refresh some of those connections and see where that might lead. This was very successful for him. He had over 100 people reach out. But one of the things that happened was that when he'd interviewed before, 4 years ago, there was one company that he had gotten an offer from, but he didn't take that job. One of the people that he had interviewed with, of course, he had connected with on LinkedIn, they saw this post and they reached out to him and said, we liked you then, let's talk now. And 3 weeks later, they gave him an offer and he started a job second week of July. So that post can make a difference. Tell you about Chris. So Chris is a higher level executive. He actually had been in a company where he was working overseas in Asia. And so he kind of lost touch with a lot of the people here in the US. And yet his company is changing. He kind of worked himself out of a job. And so now he's looking to find something else. We made this long list of people that he needed to reach out to. And some of it he wasn't comfortable with because he's like, I haven't talked to this person in years. Well, he reached out to a recruiter that he hadn't talked to in 20 years. And that recruiter said, I'm really glad that you reached out to me. I have a job. And he interviewed just in the last few weeks for that job and got an offer from them last Friday. And so that was reaching out to somebody he hadn't talked to in a long time. So if you are worried about reaching out to people that you haven't talked to, do it. Nicole is somebody who is relocating. She's already put money down on a house in a completely different state. She's moving to that state. She needs to build up her network in that state. So we've already talked about how she can do that on LinkedIn, but she's currently working and she hasn't totally told them that she's looking to make a move. So she's doing this a little covertly, but she made a list of companies in that new area that she is interested in. And she has a couple of friends in that area. And she went to those friends and said, look, if I'm going to get a job here, this is what I have to do. I need to build out my network. And here's who I think I need to meet. And these are the companies that I'm looking at. Here's my profession. Here's my industry. And in working with them, they started making introductions. She is actively interviewing right now, even though she's not moving until probably January or February. She's actively interviewing right now. And it sounds like she's going to get pretty close to an offer. So she leveraged the network of the people in that new environment, and they really came through. Last person, Bobby, is somebody whose company is really changing, and the business is kind of it's probably going to get acquired. They're shutting down. People kind of know what's happening in the industry. He's a natural networker, and when it kind of hit the news that things were going to be happening at his company, people from another company reached out to him and said, hey, we know what's happening at your company. Is this going to be affecting you? And he said, yeah, it is. And it turned out that he's also got other people in this company that they're all going to be affected. And they'd all sort of been very good at networking. And so they all ended up talking to this other company, and he and a whole bunch of his colleagues all just shifted over to this other company a few months ago. So knowing people over time makes a huge difference. Then reaching out and coming up with a new plan if you are relocating, or reaching out to people that you haven't talked to in a long time. They all work. You just have to kind of have the courage to do it. So questions that you can ask when you are interviewing, just want to throw these out there. These are standard questions I tell everybody. What are you seeing in the market? Who are you trying to connect to? And who are you trying to meet with? How can I help you? What changes are you seeing in your industry or profession? Who are your go-to people when you need to hire? Who reaches out to you about career opportunities? Who should I have on my radar for you because you want to help them? And how have you made successful moves in your career? Get them talking a little bit. I hope this has been helpful for you. That's it for today's topic. If you are watching this live, we are going to go into our Q&A session. For those of you who are watching the replay, thank you for tuning in. You can click the link in the description to sign up for future Just Ask Julia sessions, or you can click this QR code. So thank you very much.